Captain Elias Rane sat in the Horizon's Edge mess hall, a steaming cup of coffee in his hand. The hum of the ship's engines was a familiar background sound, steady and comforting. Around him, crew members laughed and shared stories from their last mission. The Horizon's Edge was a deep space research vessel, traveling further than most ships dared. Their next destination was the Shimmer Zone, a strange, glowing region of space that no one fully understood. Scientists believed it held secrets about space and time. Pilots believed it held trouble. Elias had been in space for most of his life. He had commanded the Horizon's Edge for 3 years, and before that, he had served in the exploration fleet. He had medals, respect, and stories of survival. But there was one thing he did not have: someone waiting for him when the missions ended. He often hid that thought behind humor, and tonight, as the crew traded jokes, he let one slip. "Will anyone even marry me?" Elias said with a mock sigh. The table erupted in laughter. Officer Duran slapped the table. "Not unless they enjoy living on protein bars and recycled air, Captain." "Hey," Elias said, pointing at him. "These protein bars are top quality." Laughter spread through the room again. It was the kind of moment that kept morale high during long voyages. But not everyone laughed. Across the table, Dr. Lyra watched him quietly. She was an alien xenobiologist from a species called the Solari, tall, graceful, with pale silver skin that shimmered under the mess hall lights. Her large, dark eyes always seemed to hold secrets. When the noise from the crew died down, Lyra leaned closer. Her voice was soft, almost like she didn't want anyone else to hear. "Maybe me," she whispered. Elias froze. For a second, he wasn't sure he'd heard her right. "Sorry, what?" he asked, his usual calm voice breaking slightly. But Lyra had already stood up, carrying her empty cup to the dispenser. She didn't look back. Elias stared after her, his mind spinning. Was she joking? Was she serious? The words replayed in his head again and again. The next day, Elias tried to push the moment out of his mind. The Shimmer Zone was only 2 days away, and there was work to do. The bridge was busy with preparations. Navigation systems needed recalibration, hull shielding was tested, and scientific equipment was readied for the strange energy waves they might encounter. Still, whenever Lyra walked into the room, Elias felt his focus slip. She didn't mention what she had said. She didn't even seem different. But every time her eyes met his, he felt like she knew something he didn't. That evening, the ship received its first strange reading. "Captain," the sensor officer called. "We're picking up faint energy signatures ahead. They're unusual." Elias stepped over. "Unusual how?" The officer pulled up the data. "They repeat in a pattern. Could be natural, but it almost looks like code." Lyra, who had been on the bridge, leaned over the console. "Not any code I've seen. The frequency shifts too smoothly for a machine error. It's deliberate." Elias frowned. "You think someone's sending it? Or something?" Lyra replied. Over the next hour, they tracked the signal. The pattern kept repeating, but there was no clear source. It was faint, like it was coming from far deeper in the Shimmer Zone. When the shift ended, Elias found himself walking toward the science lab. He told himself it was to ask about the signal. But when he stepped inside, Lyra was the only one there, reviewing the data on her screen. "Any progress?" he asked. She shook her head. "Not yet. But it feels familiar." Elias leaned on the table beside her. "You've been in space a long time, seen plenty of strange things. Why does this one feel different?" Lyra looked at him for a moment before answering. "Because it feels like someone is trying to speak to us, and they might not have much time left." Something in her tone made Elias believe her. "We'll keep tracking it," he said. As he turned to leave, she spoke again. Captain, he stopped. About last night, she said, her voice calm but unreadable. Don't think too much about it. He raised an eyebrow. That's easy for you to say. Her lips curved in a faint smile. Is it? Before he could reply, the ship's comms system crackled to life. Bridge to Captain Rainey. The officer's voice came through. You'll want to hear this. We've isolated part of the signal. Elias and Lyra hurried back to the bridge. The sensor officer replayed the transmission. Static filled the room, followed by a faint, distorted voice. It was speaking in perfect human English. Help us, the voice said, and then the signal cut off. The bridge fell silent. Elias felt a chill. Out here, hundreds of light years from Earth, a voice speaking English was impossible, unless there were humans out there. Lyra's eyes met his. I think, she said quietly, this just became more than a research mission. Elias didn't answer. He was still thinking about that whisper in the mess hall. And now, with a human voice calling for help in the depths of an uncharted zone, he wondered if the two mysteries might somehow be connected. Somehow, he had the feeling that whatever waited for them in the Shimmer Zone would change everything. About the mission, about the ship, and maybe about him. The engines of the Horizon's Edge roared gently as the ship pushed onward, deeper into the unknown. And somewhere out there, a voice, and a secret, was waiting. The voice had been short, only 2 words, help us. But they echoed in Captain Elias Ronnie's mind long after the bridge went quiet. The sound was strange in its clarity, like it had traveled across the stars without losing strength. The Shimmer Zone was still a day away, but the crew's mood had changed. What was supposed to be a research trip now carried the weight of a rescue mission. Still, there were too many questions. Who had sent the message? How had they survived in such a dangerous region? And why were they speaking human English? Elias called for a meeting in the main conference room. The officers gathered, their faces serious. The holographic map of the Shimmer Zone glowed in the center of the table, the faint signal source marked by a pulsing red dot. We still can't confirm the exact location, said Officer Duran. The signal bounces through the zone's energy, waves. It could be coming from anywhere inside. Lyra spoke next. The voice, it wasn't just human. There was something strange about it. The tone was steady, but the pitch kept shifting, almost like it was adapting to our listening systems. Elias folded his arms. Adapting or testing us? The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The Shimmer Zone was famous for strange phenomena, but none of them had ever heard of voices riding its energy currents. We'll continue on course, Elias said finally, but I want full scans running every second. If there's someone out there, we'll find them. The next morning, Elias stepped into the mess hall. He scanned the room without meaning to, but Lyra wasn't there. He tried to tell himself it didn't matter. He poured coffee and sat by the viewport. The stars streaked past as the ship moved through the quiet darkness. The hum of the engines usually brought comfort, but today it felt like a clock ticking toward something unknown. Lyra finally entered, carrying a data tablet. She paused when she saw him, then walked over. You've been avoiding me, she said. I've been avoiding distractions, Elias replied. Her eyes softened slightly. You think I'm a distraction? Elias took a sip of coffee. You whispered something to me, then acted like it didn't happen. And now we've got a ghost voice in the middle of nowhere. I'm just trying to focus. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she slid the tablet across the table to him. This is why I'm here, she said. The screen showed pages of research notes, wave patterns, alien symbols, and strange energy readings. This is the Shimmer Zone's energy signature, she explained. I've seen something like it before, once, a long time ago, and it was tied to humans. Elias looked at her sharply. Tied how? Your species has something unique, she said. When you face unknown conditions, you adapt faster than almost any other. Even your minds adjust quickly. I've studied it for years. And that's why you're on my ship? Elias asked. Lyra hesitated. Partly. She glanced toward the viewport. But also because I believe there's more to your people's history than you know. The Shimmer Zone might prove it. Before Elias could press her for details, the ship's comms buzzed. Captain, you better get up here, came the voice of the sensor officer. On the bridge, the holographic display showed the signal's latest pattern. It had changed. No longer just help us, it now repeated a longer phrase. Help us. We remember. The voice was clearer this time, almost warm, but with an odd echo. Can you trace it? Elias asked. Working on it, the officer said, fingers flying, over the controls. It's still bouncing, but... Wait, I've got a heading. The screen shifted, zooming in toward the outer edge of the Shimmer Zone. A faint object appeared. Not a planet, not an asteroid, but a structure. It's stationary, the officer said. Metallic. Could be a station. Lyra leaned forward. Or a trap. The room fell silent for a moment. Everyone knew she could be right. But the voice, it didn't sound hostile. We'll approach with caution, Elias said at last. Maintain shield power at maximum. Hours later, the horizon's edge drew closer to the structure. Through the forward viewport, it looked like a giant ring, broken in places, with glowing fragments drifting around it. It turned slowly, lit by the shimmer of the surrounding space. Elias stood beside the pilot's chair. Any life signs? The sensor officer frowned. Reading something. It's faint, but yes. Multiple signs. Not all human, but close. Lyra's voice was quiet. Close enough to call for help in your language. The ship drifted nearer, scanning every surface. Small lights flickered along the ring's inner edges, as if parts of it were still alive. Captain, the comms officer said suddenly, the signal's changing again. It's directed at us now. The bridge speakers crackled. The same voice spoke, clearer than ever. Welcome home. The crew exchanged uneasy looks. We are not home, Elias said under his breath. Lyra's gaze stayed fixed on the drifting structure. Maybe they think you are. Elias didn't like mysteries he couldn't control, but there was something about the voice, something almost familiar, though he couldn't place it. All stop, he ordered. We scan every inch before we dock. The crew began their work, but Elias's mind wasn't on the scans. It was on the way Lyra had said home, and how her whisper in the mess hall suddenly felt less like a joke and more like a piece of a puzzle he didn't understand. Yet somewhere in that broken ring someone was waiting, someone who knew English, someone who claimed to remember, and Elias had the strange feeling that when he found them, the answer to both the signal and Lyra's mysterious words would be the same. The Shimmer Zone loomed ahead, glowing like liquid light. The horizon's edge held position, engines quiet, as the crew prepared for whatever they might find inside the ancient drifting station. The Shimmer Zone was unlike anything Captain Elias Rane had ever seen. From the bridge of the horizon's edge, the crew watched space twist and ripple ahead. Colors bled into one another like paint in water, gold melting into deep blue, silver shifting into crimson. The stars beyond the zone looked blurred, as if they were being seen through moving glass. This is beautiful, Officer Duran whispered. It's dangerous, Elias replied. His hands rested firmly on the command chair's armrests. No, autopilot. We go in on manual control. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Flying manually into an unstable region of space was risky, but Elias's voice left no room for argument. The horizon's edge moved forward. As they crossed the invisible boundary, the ship shuddered. The hull groaned softly and every screen flickered. Navigation readings jumped wildly, showing impossible coordinates, as if the ship was in 3 different places at once. Shields holding at 90%, the engineer reported. Maintain. Course, Elias said. Lyra stood beside him, her silver skin reflecting the shifting colors outside. Your reflexes are better than most, she said quietly. It's called practice. Elias replied without looking at her. She tilted her head. No, it's more than that. Humans adjust quickly. Your minds accept change faster than almost any species. I've studied. You don't freeze when the rules break. You make new ones. Elias gave her a sidelong glance. That's your scientist's way of saying we're stubborn. Stubbornness, Lyra said, is sometimes survival. The strange station, the broken ring, grew larger in the viewport. Now, in the shimmer zone's light, Elias could see that it was far older than it had appeared before. Its metal was dark and scarred, patched in places with different materials. Some sections glowed faintly while others looked dead and cold. Life signs still faint, the sensor officer reported. They're scattered through the structure. If they're alive, they're spread thin. Elias studied the readout. And the signal? Still active. Repeating both phrases now. Help us. We remember. The ship drew closer. Pieces of debris drifted slowly around the ring, broken panels, bits of machinery, shards of crystal-like material that glimmered in the shifting light. Without warning, the ship lurched. Gravity surge! The pilot shouted. Something just pulled us sideways! Elias gripped the controls. Counter thrust, now! The ship's engines roared, fighting against the invisible tug. Outside, space itself seemed to bend toward a point near the station. Lyra's hands flew over a console. The shimmer zone is unstable here. That pull isn't gravity. It's a distortion in space-time. If we don't correct for it, we'll spiral straight into the station. Then tell me how to correct, Elias said through clenched teeth. Manual adjustments, 4 degrees starboard, 2 degrees down. Now! Elias followed her instructions. The ship steadied, the distortion passing behind them. The crew exhaled as one. That, Elias said, is why I don't trust autopilot. They held position near the station's outer edge. Scans. Show docking points on the far side, the sensor officer said. Some are damaged, but one might still work. Elias nodded. We'll take the shuttle. Small craft will be easier to maneuver if we get caught in another distortion. Lyra looked at him sharply. You're going down there yourself? I'm the one they called, Elias said simply. Besides, if they're human, or close, seeing a human face might matter. Her expression softened slightly. Then, I'm coming with you. Elias didn't argue. The shuttle ride was tense. The shimmer zone's colors swirled around them like living things, brushing against the shuttle's shields. Every now and then, flashes of light rippled across the viewing glass, making it look like they were passing through a storm of stars. As they neared the station, they saw more damage. Sections had been torn open, leaving jagged edges exposed to the void. Other areas had been sealed with makeshift plating. Here and there, faint lights glimmered, as if the place was holding on to life by threads. Elias guided the shuttle into a docking port that still had faint power. The clamps engaged, with a low thud. Inside the airlock, the lights flickered. The air smelled faintly metallic, with a hint of something old, like a place that hadn't been fully alive for years. Lyra moved ahead, scanning the corridor with a small handheld device. Oxygen levels are low, but breathable. Temperature is stable. They moved carefully through the dim hallways. The walls were lined with strange markings, not quite human writing, but something similar. Elias ran his fingers over one of them. This looks like... He hesitated. No, it can't be. What? Lyra asked. Old Earth script, but changed, mixed with something else. She studied it. A hybrid language. They turned a corner and froze. A figure stood at the far end of the corridor, tall, humanoid, wearing a suit of patched armor. The helmet was transparent, and inside was a face. Human, but not quite. The skin was pale, almost translucent, and the eyes were slightly larger than normal. The cheekbones were sharper, the jaw narrower. The hair was white, though the figure moved with the energy of youth. The figure's lips parted. When they spoke, the voice was the same as the one in the signal. "Help us," they said. "We remember you." Elias stepped forward slowly. "Who are you?" The figure tilted their head. "We are what you left behind." Lyra's scanner beeped rapidly. "They're human," she whispered to Elias. "Or at least, they were." Elias' chest tightened. He didn't understand yet, but he knew one thing. This meeting was not an accident. Somewhere deep in the Shimmer Zone, a piece of human history had been waiting, and it had just found him. Captain Elias Rane stood in the dim corridor of the ancient station, his eyes fixed on the pale figure before him. The air was still and heavy, as if the walls themselves held their breath. The humanoid being's gaze was calm, but full of a quiet sadness. "We are what you left behind," the figure repeated softly. Elias's mind raced. "What do you mean? Who left you behind?" The figure lowered their head slightly and spoke again. "Long ago, our ancestors came here. They were human like you. But the Shimmer Zone changed us. We had to survive. We became something new." Lyra stepped forward, scanning the figure with her handheld device. "Their biology is altered, genetically different from modern humans, but clearly related. It's like evolution, sped up by the strange energy of the zone. We call ourselves the Forgotten Ones," the figure said, "because we have been forgotten by those who left us here. But now we remember. We remember who we are." Elias felt a chill. "Why did you send the signal? Why call for help?" The figure's eyes darkened. "Because something is wrong. The Shimmer Zone is unstable. Deep inside this place, an ancient machine awakens. It tears at the fabric of space and time. It threatens all life here. Even you." Lyra nodded. "I've detected energy fluctuations consistent with a large unknown device. If it activates fully, it could destroy this entire region." Elias looked at the station's broken walls and flickering lights. "How do we stop it?" The Forgotten Ones shook their head. "We cannot. Not without help. We have tried for years, but we lack the strength. You are different. Your kind, your emotions, your ability to adapt. These may be the key." Elias swallowed hard. "Me? Why me?" The figure smiled faintly. "Because you listen. Because you care. Because you did not forget us, even when we thought we were alone." Lyra glanced at Elias. "Your emotional bonds, your connections, they are powerful. I believe that's why the signal was in your language and why it called you here." The room fell silent. Outside, the station creaked and groaned, a reminder that time was running out. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights flashed as the station shook violently. "The machine is activating," one of the Forgotten Ones shouted, rushing into the room. Elias grabbed Lyra's arm. "We need to move, now!" They followed the Forgotten Ones through winding corridors, the station trembling around them. Debris fell, and distant crashes echoed like thunder. "Where are we going?" Elias asked. "To the control room," the figure answered. "If we can shut down the machine from there, we might save ourselves." The journey was perilous. The station's systems faltered, gravity shifted, and strange energy pulses rattled the walls. But Elias stayed calm, guiding the group through each challenge. Finally, they reached the control room. a vast chamber filled with ancient consoles, glowing softly with alien symbols. Elias approached one of the panels, wiping years of dust away. The controls were unlike anything he had seen, but Lyra's expertise helped them quickly. "These symbols are part of an old human language," she said, "modified but still readable. Together they work to understand the machine's systems." The Forgotten Ones explained its purpose long ago, to stabilize the Shimmer Zone. But over time, it had malfunctioned and begun to tear the zone apart. Elias realized the stakes were higher than he thought. Failure meant the loss of not only the Forgotten Ones, but possibly the Horizon's Edge and its crew, too. As the machine hummed louder, Elias felt a deep connection to these people. They were human in spirit, if not in form, and they had reached out to him, to humanity, for salvation. "Can we stop it?" he asked urgently. Lyra nodded. "But it will require precise timing and teamwork, and the machine's defenses will fight back." Elias took a deep breath. "Then we fight. Together." The Forgotten Ones prepared to assist. Elias looked at Lyra and the others. For the first time in a long while, he felt hope. Not just for survival, but for something greater. Outside the station, the Shimmer Zone shimmered with uncertain light. Inside, a human story was unfolding, one of loss, hope, and the strength to remember. The deep hum of the ancient station's machinery filled the air like a low heartbeat. Captain Elias Rani stood among the Forgotten Ones and his own crew, their faces tense with the weight of the moment. The unstable Shimmer Zone pulsed beyond, the thick walls threatening to tear everything apart. "We cannot wait for the machine to stop on its own," Elias said firmly. "Its power is growing. If it activates fully, it will destroy the station, and possibly the entire zone." Lyra nodded, her silver skin gleaming in the faint light. "I've analyzed the energy readings. There's a way to shut it down, but it's risky. The controls are ancient and partially damaged. We'll need precise timing and full cooperation." Elias turned to the Forgotten Ones. "Can you help us get to the core, the heart of the machine?" One of them, a young woman with bright eyes, stepped forward. "We know the way, but the corridors are unstable. Many have tried and failed." Elias looked around at his crew. "We don't have a choice." Plans were made quickly. The Horizon's Edge crew and the Forgotten Ones formed a team to reach the core chamber deep inside the station. Elias took the lead, knowing his presence was important, not just as a commander, but as a symbol of hope. As they moved through the station's twisting halls, alarms echoed again, warning of rising energy surges. The walls trembled and strange distortions flickered along the corridors. "Keep moving," Elias urged. "We're almost there." Lyra scanned ahead. "Energy levels are spiking. The machine is reacting to our presence." Elias glanced at her. "It knows we're coming." Suddenly, a loud crash shook the hallway behind them. Debris fell, blocking their path. "We need another way," Elias said quickly. "Any ideas?" The young Forgotten One, named Mira, pointed toward a narrow maintenance tunnel. "This way. It's risky, but it leads closer to the core." Without hesitation, Elias led the group into the dark tunnel. The air was stale and tight, but they pressed forward. At last, they reached the core chamber. It was vast and filled with strange machinery, pulsing with light and energy. At its center stood the ancient device, a complex tangle of cables and metal, humming with unstable power. Elias stepped forward, staring at the controls. "Lyra, can you work with this?" She nodded. "I can try." Her fingers danced over the ancient panels. "The system responds to emotional signals, which means our presence and focus matter more than just physical commands." Elias frowned. Emotional signals? Yes, Lyra said softly. Humans send unique bioelectrical signals when they feel strong emotions. It's part of your adaptability. The machine recognizes and responds to those signals. Elias understood then why the Forgotten Ones believed in him and his kind. Their emotional strength was more than just feelings. It was a power. All right, Elias said, then we give it everything we have. As Lyra worked, Elias focused on staying calm and steady. He looked at his team, humans and Forgotten Ones, united against the threat. Suddenly, the machine reacted violently. Sparks flew, lights flickered, and a low growl echoed through the chamber. "It's fighting us!" Lyra shouted. "We need to stay synchronized." Elias took a deep breath and focused on his memories. The laughter of his crew, the trust in his team, the hope that kept him alive on countless missions. His heart beat steadily, sending clear signals to the machine. Slowly, the hum began to soften. The Forgotten Ones joined in, sharing their own memories and feelings. The chamber glowed with light as the machine responded. But then, a new danger appeared. The station shook violently as a massive energy wave burst from the machine. Elias stumbled but held his ground. Outside, the horizon's edge trembled as space itself twisted around the shimmer zone. "We're losing stability," the engineer warned. "We have minutes before the whole station collapses." Elias's mind raced. "Lyra, can we finish?" "Yes, but we need to act now." With a final push, Elias and the team synchronized their emotional signals, hope, courage, and unity, into the machine. The humming slowed, then stopped. The lights dimmed. The dangerous energy waves faded. The shimmer zone began to calm. Elias leaned back, exhausted but relieved. "You did it," Mira said, smiling. "We did it," Elias corrected. Lyra approached, breathing heavily. "The machine is offline. The zone is stabilizing." Elias looked out the viewport. The stars seemed steady again, the colors no longer swirling wildly. For a moment, all was quiet. Later, back on the horizon's edge, the crew gathered in the mess hall. Elias sat across from Lyra, the memory of the mission still fresh. She smiled, softly. "You were right. Humans are special, not because of strength or technology, but because of your heart." Elias laughed quietly. "Guess that joke I made wasn't so funny after all." Lyra's eyes met his. "About that night in the mess hall," Elias's heart skipped. "The maybe me moment?" She nodded. "I meant it. I wasn't joking." Elias smiled, warmth spreading through him. "I'm glad you weren't." As the ship sailed back toward home, the stars shining bright, Elias felt something new. Hope. Not just for the future of the mission, but for the future with Lyra by his side. The horizon's edge glided away from the ancient station, its engines humming softly against the quiet backdrop of space. Captain Elias Rane sat in the command chair, staring out at the stars that stretched endlessly ahead. The shimmer zone's strange glow had faded behind them, but its mysteries still lingered in his mind. Beside him stood Dr. Lyra, her silver skin shimmering faintly under the soft lights of the bridge. The silence between them was comfortable. Yet charged with unspoken feelings, Elias finally broke the quiet. "So, about that night in the mess hall," Lyra smiled, a gentle curve of her lips. "I meant what I said." Elias blinked, surprised. "You really meant it? When you whispered, 'Maybe me'?" She nodded. "Yes. I was nervous. I didn't know how you'd react." He laughed softly. I froze. I've never had anyone say that to me before. Lyra's eyes softened. "Humans are special, Elias, not just for your bravery or your mind, but for your heart. I see it now." Elias looked away, feeling warmth spread inside him. "I never thought I'd find that here, so far from Earth." She stepped closer. Love doesn't need a planet. It only needs two people willing to try. Days passed as the Horizon's Edge sailed home. The crew worked to repair and resupply, but Elias and Lyra found moments to talk and laugh, slowly building a connection that neither had expected. One evening, Elias invited Lyra to the observation deck. Stars shimmered around them, a silent promise of endless possibilities. "I've spent my life searching for meaning," Elias said quietly. "Maybe I was looking in the wrong places." Lyra reached out and took his hand. "Sometimes what we need is right in front of us." He smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "Maybe me?" Her laugh was soft and bright. "Maybe you." But the mission wasn't over. The data they had collected from the station revealed more than they'd realized. Back on the bridge, Lyra studied the readings carefully. "The shimmer zone is stabilizing, but not permanently. The ancient machine was a stopgap, a way to hold chaos at bay." Elias frowned. "So the danger could return?" "Possibly," Lyra said. "But now we have knowledge, and you have something the machine didn't: hope and determination." Elias nodded. "Then we prepare for whatever comes next." Weeks later, the Horizon's Edge received a transmission from Earth. It was a simple message, but its meaning was powerful. "Welcome home, Captain Rane. The Federation honors your bravery and leadership. Your actions have saved lives and uncovered new truths about humanity's past." Elias felt pride swell inside him. But more than that, he felt a deep gratitude for the unexpected journey, one that had brought him not just answers, but a chance at love. Lyra stood by his side as he accepted the message. "You were never alone," she said softly. "Not then, not now." Elias looked at her, his heart full. "Maybe me," she smiled back. "Maybe us." As the Horizon's Edge prepared to dock, Elias looked out at the stars once more. The vastness of space still held mysteries, but he knew one thing for sure. Humanity's spirit was stronger than ever, and love could bloom even in the darkest corners of the universe. And so, with hope lighting the way, Captain Elias Rane and Dr. Lyra faced the future together and are ready for